Hey, it's Friday. That means it's mail time, and we answer your questions. Okay, so I'm excited because last week I begged actually online is that if you guys would start asking public questions instead of emailing me or DMing me, because I like to get a little community thing going here. So therefore, we're going to answer some questions. Going to answer as many as we can get within 4 minutes because that's when people start dropping off. So the first one I got asked is from Kim Moore. I'm in the middle of my first Genius Hour with my 6th graders. I'm having a difficult time getting them to think beyond a basic research project. Any suggestions on how to push them to think beyond? Kim, this is the number one thing that I get often from a lot of teachers is that they still are in that subservient mindset of, hey, what do you want me to do? Or, you know, I'll Google something and that will be my project. A lot of times on that first project, I will make them all choose, like that whole constraints lead to creativity thing. I will constrain them to an item or a thing. Like our first project in our innovation class, I said, look, the library just got, you know, refurnished, all this movable furniture and whiteboards. Tell me what to do with it. And I said you could pick a zone, you could talk about, you know, educating the public on what to do with it or what not to do with it. Some of them made pivots, but no matter what, they were confined to something about the Innovation Center Library. Similarly, I have this in front of me. All these are from our salad bar. You could say, tell me what to do with these. We throw these away every day. They are recyclable. Are we recycling them? What could we do with these if we didn't recycle them? You'd be shocked on how many things you could come up with. Matter of fact, set a goal of at least 30 things that you could do with this, and when they're done with their 30, ask them to do 30 more. You'll be shocked, because your first 10 will be the obvious ones. Something you might get started off with. The other thing is, instead of what are you passionate about? You might ask them, what is making you mad? What do you see wrong in the world? What are some needs that need to be taken care of? They may start talking about the hurricanes or politics or whatever. So, by the way, I love it. My last Monday Motivation podcast was about when you hear people complaining, challenged to come up with 10 solutions from their complaints. Anyway, shameless plug for this podcast. George Elo. So I love your idea of having them find a mentor, and I see how that's relevant and practical idea at the high school, at the level we teach, high school, but what does that look like at the lower levels? Great question, George. George, I will say that we do a project called the Macro and Micro Resources, and we start looking at what our resources are in town. So you might start listing the big businesses, or if you're in a small town, the businesses in your town. And then our micro resources is, who do we know in that company? Oftentimes when the kids start talking, we know a guy that knows a guy. And sometimes our aunts and uncles and all these other things, when the kids start bouncing off ideas one another, we start finding people that are interesting to talk to, maybe have a Skype call with, things of that nature. All right, time for one more. Let's choose one. Oh my gosh, I got a lot of feedback. So this one from Nodas Pitas. How do you encourage collaboration or teamwork? It's something I have noticed the students are not quite good at, and necessarily when you're working on projects. We have a thing called the Roth IRA, and oftentimes when they're kind of pitching some of their ideas, the people that are arguing against one another, because I actually encourage people to I hate to say shoot down their idea, but to like test it and challenge it. Oftentimes, I encourage the people that see it from the opposite perspectives to team up with each other. When they have different perspectives, that's usually a really, really, really great team. Maybe I can squeeze in one more. Christine Robinson asked, a good question from my 8th graders last week. What if you're interested in something expensive? In general, how do students fund and supply their Genius Hour projects? This is really something I'm passionate about. Have them build up to that. This is why we do the concept of MVPs, minimum viable products. So if they're wanting to build this huge thingamabob, what is the simplest way they can get that done? Not too long ago, one of my students talking about an app that they could create for sign-ups for this one area where there's whiteboards and all these other really nice things in the library. I said, okay, what's the MVP of that? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What problem are you trying to solve? And they're like, well, honestly, it's kind of like a sign-in sheet on first come, first serve. I'm like, what's the minimum of that? They're like, putting out a clipboard and a marker? great. Because you can always build up. It's hard to have a huge idea and keep whittling down. So if your thing is eventually going to be expensive, prototype that with cheap materials. Give them the concept of what they're doing, and then maybe if people can believe in the concept, you might start looking for funders. Also, small caveat, this is one of the things that we're trying to do. We're now working on a nonprofit arm. We're wanting to fund student ideas and not take any of their intellectual property. Anyway, I've gone over. There was several other questions. I'll either answer them online, a lot of questions, or maybe next mail time. But in the meantime, if you have questions and we want to feature you, I can't feature the ones that are DM'd, but the ones that are public, I can. So please, still asking you next week. Had a big response this week. Let's have a bigger response next week, and I will try to get to your questions. Let's see. Choose one. Choose one. Kim, I will send you a book. I will DM you for your address, and thank you for sending in. I just kind of randomly will choose one each week, so I'll get you a book ASAP. Thank you so much. We went over a little over time. This is Don Wettrick reminding you that opportunities are everywhere. See ya.